Thought I'd make a video about speed controllers that I use in my wings. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to set up a couple of quad ESCs to use in a couple of wing builds that I'm doing. I've got a brand new 51 amp Luminaire BL Haley 32 that I'm going to be using in my new Hornet. And that's going to be powering a 2217 2300 kV motor. And this thing has a burst of like 60 or 80 amps, but it's plenty strong. This other one is just an old SpeedX ES25 on BL Healy S that we're going to be using in a little small wing. It's going to be this size of wing, and it's going to be operating a 1407 motor. 25 amps is more than enough. One of the things about these quad ESCs is the quad guys get all the upgrades and all the cool stuff, while us wing guys, we're kind of stuck to some of the old stuff in the past. I mean, if you look at some of these old speed controllers, good grief, there's a 40 amp speed controller. Look at the size of that thing. There's a 60 amp speed controller. It's like a small brick. These things weigh a ton. There are also, a lot of them use outdated firmware. You know, the quad guys have all this cool BL Healy stuff that's really neat. In fact, if you've haven't used a 32-bit BL Healy speed controller, I highly recommend it. You can slow the throttle down and literally just watch the prop turn over. So to use these, we just need to make a couple changes to them to use on a wing, because they're obviously come default set up to use as quad. And really the only thing we're going to change basically is we want to turn the brake stop on. Because when you pull the throttle all the way back, you want that prop to stop for two reasons on an airplane. On a quad you don't, because you do that and it'll fall out of the sky. They have air mode and things like that to take care of that. But on a plane, if you pull the throttle back and that prop keeps on spinning, that does two things. One is it produces more drag, especially if you're trying to glide. If you just think about it, if you got a spinning prop, it's going to be more drag than a prop that is stopped in midair. And the other thing is, when we always land, we have to land in the grass. And it's nice to have a prop that's stopped, and you know, for the most part, it's going to be flat or close to it. So when it hits the ground, it's just going to, it's just going to turn up flat. As a spinning prop, there's a good chance you're going to hit the ground and you break the prop, or worse, rip the motor mount out of the wing. So there's two advantages of that. Now to flash these are obviously on the quads. They're set up to attach to a flight controller, and then everything is done through the flight controller. So what I've done, and I'm an old quad guy, so I've got plenty of spare quad parts laying around, like most people do. If not, if you want to do this, you might hit one of your old buddies up and see if they have it, or you can just buy some old stuff. But this is a old real ACC power distribution board right there, and an old flight controller. Not even sure what it is. I have to hook it up to BL Healy to find out. And I've got this thing flashed to Betaflight 3.2.5, I think it is. So you just have to take, because what we're going to do is we're going to use this as a pass-through to connect these speed controllers to. And what I've done here is, because this one obviously was all soldered in with wires and stuff, I've added a pin out here for one of the PWM slots here, which is one of the channels. So what we're going to do is we're going to connect this thing up, and we're going to connect the speed controllers to it. And we're going to make a couple of changes on the speed controllers to make it ideal for wings. So we'll start with this brand new one here, which is a Luminaire. It's a 51 amp, 2 to 6S. It's a 32-bit. This thing even has a telemetry that can go to the flight controller. Yeah, tell you all sorts of stuff. But to hook it up is real simple. This one still has the connector attached to it. So we're going to attach that to the board. Now, almost all these boards, the negative is on the outside pin. So you want the signal wire is going to go on the inside. So we're just going to hook that up to the pin that we have soldered up. And again, there's a close-up look of the board. Okay. Now on the other end, we're going to need to connect the power supply. Whoops. To the speed controller. And this, obviously I've got a couple wires with alligator clips attached on the end of them. So do that sort of thing. Hook the positive up, and we'll hook the negative up. And always double check and make sure you've got nothing in the way. These things are shorting out. Now we're going to hook this to BL Healy. Now, I'm not going to cover downloading and BL Healy and Betaflight. There's plenty of information on the web on how to do that. But you're going to need to have a board that's flashed to Betaflight, something that'll do pass-through for the BL Healy. This is 3.2.5. I think the latest version is 3.5 or 3.6, and maybe coming out with 4.0. So the older versions work just fine. The other thing you're going to need is you're going to need a copy of the BL Healy suites. And there's two of them. There's a BL Healy 32, which is what we're going to need for this one. And then there's an old one for the BL Healy S, which is this one. Anything older than BL Healy S, probably wouldn't recommend even messing with. So we're going to start with this one here, the BL Healy 32. And we're going to pick the BL Healy 32 suite. Which you probably can't see my screen, but I've got it. That one came up on the BL Healy 32. So now that we've got this thing, we're going to connect. Before we plug the battery in, we'll connect to BL Healy. Okay, and once it's connected, now we need to apply power to the ESC. And then we'll hit read setup. And it came up, found multiple ESC configurations. It found the one speed controller I've got here, which is a Syskin GD32 Plus. So now that we got this thing read, the first thing you probably want to do is let's just go ahead and flash it to the current BL Healy, which is out there, which on this one here is 32.6. And I've actually did this a while ago, so to save a little bit of time. So I've already got it flashed. So now next, on your screen, we just want to change a couple of things. The first thing we want to do, the main thing we want to do is we want to turn brake stop on. I turn it on 100%, so that prop will stop. That's in there. The other thing you want to do here is on the PWM frequency is change that from 24, which I think is default, to 48. And the reason why is, according to Oscar Liang, if you haven't go to his website, he's got a lot of information on that website. He talks about BL Healy 32 settings. And the reason you want to change to the frequency to 48 is, well, I'll just read this paragraph for you real quick. The default value of PWM frequency in BL Healy 32 is 24 kilohertz. By raising it to 48 kilohertz, should make a noticeable improvement in flight performance for most mini quads out there. When you increase the PWM frequencies, the motors run smoother and tend to generate less noise. Some people even claim the motors come down cooler, as well as getting longer flight times because of the higher efficiency. Note, the PWM frequency setting in BL Healy 32 is how often the ESC processor switches the FATs. It all happens inside the ESC. It's unrelated to the loop time or the PWM frequency set by the flight controller, which is Betaflight, which is how often the flight controller sends a motor output signal to the ESC. So basically it's just how fast that the ESC sends the switching to the motors and stuff. So, and there's more information on that. So anyway, he's a lot smarter guy than me. So we're going to do that. And the next thing he recommends is setting the motor timing to automatic. So we're going to move this to automatic, which is all the way to the left here. You'll have to read the screen. Obviously you can't see this. But at this point, I've got the thing I've changed the motor timing to auto. I've turned the brake stop on to 100%. I've changed the PWM frequency to 48. The other thing we want to make sure is the throttle calibration of the minimum throttle and maximum throttle. The minimum should be set to 1,000. The maximum throttle should be set to 2,000. Then all we simply do is we write the setup on here. And once it's written, it'll say OK. And then now we're done with that one. That one's flashed and ready to go. So we'll unhook the battery. Take this one out of the way. Now this next one is a SpeedX ES25. This is an old quad ESC we're going to use in that little small wing over there. This one I kind of prepped. It's got some extra wires. One thing you'll have to do using a quad ESC is, obviously there's no BEC on it, which is fine with me. So it's going to have a 5-volt regulator to power the receiver. And here's my spec wing. You can see how this is set up. This one has a Emax 40 amp speed controller, which I love for the spec wing, and it's a BL Healy 32. It makes this motor run really smooth, a lot of power. I have a 5-volt 3 amp regulator. You can find these on Amazon, and you get kind of like a pack of 5 for like $8 or something like that. It's a good thing you get 5, because after about a couple of packs, a couple of these were bad out of the package, but for the most part, I've had any problems with them. So I've got the power running from the speed controller to the 5-volt regulator and then over to my receiver. And obviously that operates the servos. So we'll need that. So now on this speed controller, this has got an XT30 connector, so I had to make some leads for it. I've got this set up to go in that in that wing. And what this has got is, what I did was I took the heat shrink off and I soldered, because this didn't have any wires on it anyway, so I made the positive negative wires the length I wanted. And then I've got some small 30 gauge wire that I added to, I soldered in along with the positive and negative. So I've got the going to the battery, and then positive and negative. This will go straight to the 5-volt regulator in the inside. The other one is, the yellow one obviously is a signal wire for the speed controller. Now you don't need the negative part of the signal wire when you're wiring these up. Okay, all you need is a signal wire, because it gets its ground through this right here. Now, the whole debate in quads about whether or not to use these or not, but in wings it don't make a bit of difference. So to hook this one up, same way. The only difference is I don't have a connector on there. We're going to hook our positive and negative up there, and somewhere around here I've got a just an old servo connector with the end stripped off. All we need is just a signal wire. Again, I'm going to put this on, and most flight controllers, the signal wires on the inside. And on this, I'm just simply going to twist the two signal wires together. It's important to make a good contact, because you get a little bit loose. And I've tried alligator clips, and the alligator clips aren't strong enough, like some of the ones I have. Obviously, you have better alligator clips, probably help, and it won't connect properly. But anyway, I'm just going to twist these two together, make it simple. So now I've got this hooked up. So now we're going to need to go to, we're going to be using BL Healy, the BL Healy S suite. Can't use the 32 on this one. So now we've got this screen up. This one's a little bit different than the other one. Not much different. Well, there's not as much stuff on this one as the other one, because the 32's got a lot more features on it. We're going to connect, before we hook the battery in, we're going to connect to a COM port here and get it hooked up. Well, so we're going to get hooked up. I got the COM port hooked up, still haven't got it yet. There we go. Now hooked up. Sometimes with BL Healy, just unplug and replug it. Just reset it, make it work. Now we'll hook this in. We'll read the setup, and there we go. Okay, and it found the speed controller. CH15, revised version 16.7, and again, same thing here. You might as well just go in and flash it to the current, the BL Healy revision deal, which is like 16.7 on this one here. So, and we're going to do the same thing here, only there's just not as much things to operate here. For instance, there's no control over the PWM frequency. But there is a brake stop on. This one basically is just on and off. It's in the middle at the bottom down there. I'll turn that on. Make sure our minimum throttle is at 1,000 and our maximum throttle is at 2,000. And then everything else I left at default. The motor timing is set at medium. It'll probably work on most everything. And all we have to do is just simply write the setup. And we're done. Now, very simply, all we have to do is go install this stuff in our wing, and it works just fine. Again, just the weight savings alone is worth going to these quad ESCs. But it's some of them old wing ESCs. There's no telling what the firmware is. It's proprietary firmware. It might be old Simon K firmware, which is not even supported anymore. Especially to get into these quad ESCs, it makes a lot more sense. Saves a lot of weight, a lot smaller, and in my opinion, just seems to work a lot better.